Hi friends, Saira Map. இது ஒரு green social media. இது Facebook மாதிரி ஒரு social media platform. இதுல pictures, videos and voice chat roomலாம் இருக்கு. இதுல account open பண்ணி verify வாங்குற ஒவ்வொரு users பேர்லயும் ஒரு மரக்கன்று நடப்படும். இத sign up பண்ணி account open பண்ணும்போது verification email வரும். அத verification பண்ணா மட்டும் தான் account open ஆகும். நீங்க என்ன user name கொடுக்குறீங்களோ அதை கொடுத்து தான் login பண்ணணும். email address போடக்கூடாது. account open பண்ணி cover photo, profile picture எல்லாம் வச்சு ரெகுலரா ஆக்டிவேட்டா இருந்தா மட்டும் தான் அது verified accountல எடுத்துக்கொள்ளப்படும். அதர் ஆப்ஸ்ல அப்லோட் பண்ணாத வாட்டர்மார்க் இல்லாத ஓன் கண்டென்ட் வீடியோ போட்டு வெரிஃபை வாங்குற யூசர்ஸ்க்கு கிஃப்ட் உண்டு. அது என்ன கிஃப்ட் அப்படிங்கறத அந்த ஆப்ல மெசேஜ் வரும். சாயரா மேப் லிங்க் டிஸ்கிரிப்ஷன்ல இருக்கு, டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்கங்க. சாயரா மேப் iOS and Google Play ஸ்டோர்லயும் இருக்கு, டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்கங்க.
From the day of hearing this, an urge to attain wisdom developed in his mind. Immediately, he started reading all the scriptures. One of the scripture was on the king Parikshit. Parikshit was cursed by the son of a saint to die of snake bite within 7 days. The great sage Sugabrahmam had instructed Bhagavatam to Parikshit in 6 days. Parikshit attained wisdom in 6 days. On reading this, the king started thinking that he could also attain wisdom in 6 days. His mind was happy and peaceful. Immediately he called his prime minister, instructed him to find the best scripture reader and bring him to the palace. The minister searched in many places throughout the country and found the best scripture reader and brought him to the palace. The scripture reader was introduced to the king. A special guest house was allocated to the scripture reader. A separate palanquin was arranged with the palanquin bearers. The scripture reader started coming to the palace in the palanquin every day. The scripture reader used to take the feast along with the king. Afterwards, in a relaxed manner, he will explain the scripture Bhagavatam using all his knowledge and talent. The king used to listen to it. The scripture reader made a mental calculation that a student is a king and he must use this opportunity to improve his wealth. Like this, 6 months had passed away. One day when the scripture reader started his scripture, the king told him to stop with this. The scripture reader was shocked and looked at the king. The king told him that the king Parikshit had listened to the scripture Bhagavatam for only 6 days and attained wisdom. I am listening to the same scripture for the past 6 months. Why haven't I attained wisdom? When will I attain wisdom? The king ordered the scripture reader angrily that tomorrow morning the scripture reader must tell him the answer and went away. The scripture reader was scared and started sweating by the order of the king. How can I tell that the king had not attained wisdom? Who will know the answer to this question? The scripture reader was confused. The scripture reader was rolling in his bed that night, thinking about the punishment from the king. Imprisonment, capital punishment, deportation from the country. He was very sorrowful. Suddenly, he got an idea that he should run away from the palace along with his granddaughter during the night. So he got up and woke up his granddaughter. The granddaughter asked the scripture reader, "What is the matter, grandfather?" Still with his sleepy eyes. Scripture reader told her that we must run away from this country. The child was confused and asked him, "What is the matter?" The scripture reader replied that there is no time for all of that. We must be quick. However, the granddaughter was adamant and asked him to tell her the details. The scripture reader told her the order of the king. The child scolded both the scripture reader and the king and went back to her sleep. It was the next day morning. The granddaughter woke up and looked at her grandfather. He was sleeping soundly because he had spent the night without sleeping. She took pity on his grandfather and did not have the mind to waking him up. The granddaughter started walking towards the palace. She had informed the palace guard about her visit to the king and requested him to announce her visit. The palace guard obeyed her and conveyed the message to the king. The king ordered the palace guard to bring her inside the palace. The child was brought before the king. The king inquired, "Who are you, my child?" The child replied that she is the granddaughter of the scripture reader. The king inquired, "What do you want, my child?" "I had come here to answer the question you had asked my grandfather." On hearing this, king was astonished. The king informed the child that King Parikshit had attained wisdom in 6 days by listening to the scripture Bhagavatam from Sugabrahmam. I am listening to the same scripture for the past 6 months. Why I haven't attained wisdom? The king had put the same question to the granddaughter of the scripture reader. The child replied that she can answer this question, and she had requested the king to listen to her instructions before that. She had requested the soldiers to tie her around a pillar. The soldiers complied with her request. Then she requested them to tie the king also around at another pillar. It was also complied. Then she had requested the soldiers to go out of this room after closing all the windows and doors. It was also complied. Then she had requested the king to untie her from the pillar. The king got angry on hearing this. "I am also tied to a pillar. How can I remove your ties?" it is the same situation. Only a person can remove the bondages of others after removing his own bondages. When the person himself is tied up, he cannot remove the ties of others. In the same way, my grandfather is an average person who has the desire for gold and other things. How can he give you wisdom? You're giving him money. In return, he is telling you about scripture Bhagavatam. Only the business of giving and taking is happening here. Where is place for wisdom here? Sugabrahmam is one of the greatest sages of our country. Because of this, King Parikshit had attained wisdom by listening to scripture Bhagavatam for 6 days from Sugabrahmam. One can light a lamp only from a burning lamp. How can you light a lamp without a lamp which is not burning? O mighty king, if people can become a sage by listening to the scripture Bhagavatam, there will be millions of sages in this world. But now, there are millions of sages and illiterates living in this world. Nowadays, the scripture Bhagavatam readers are more illiterates than sages. The king was stunned to hear this. The granddaughter of the scripture reader continued, Our soul is bonded to our mind. The mind is bonded to our thoughts. Our thoughts are bonded to our desires. Our desires are bonded to our activities. Our activities are bonded to our body. Human beings must try to remove all these bondages by themselves, step by step, and come out of it. Others cannot bring a person out of their bondages. Please don't ask these questions to anybody in the future. Wisdom does not grow in trees and not available in shops for purchase. One cannot take it and give it to others. Others cannot accept it and keep it under the lock and key. It is a realization. One must feel the inner awakening and realization. After this, the king had not asked or spoken to anybody about wisdom. However, we read in the scriptures that he had become a great sage later in his life. This story must be analyzed and researched. You can attain any desired object by your hard work. You can get it by fighting or by begging. In the same way, you can donate any object you have to somebody. However, you cannot donate your wisdom. Even if you give it, the other person cannot receive it. Similarly, wisdom cannot be attained by reading, listening, wandering into Kollimalai, Imayamalai, Tiruvannamalai. One can write a will to anyone to give away all his properties. However, wisdom cannot be given to somebody through a will. This is the reason that the path travelled by Siddhas is not available in this world. They had clearly written in their compositions that the wisdom is available within our body only. We are looking for the wisdom in the outside world, similar to the king in the above story. Others are searching in the books among guru and sages. In this type of search, nobody had attained wisdom. It cannot be given to you by your guru or the siddhas who are living in the mountains in their subtle bodies even today. No one can give wisdom to anyone. Wisdom is to be found by oneself from the depths of their own mind. It had to be known and must be realized. Hence, the ones who attained wisdom, unable to compare their experience with anything else, they get stupefied and unable to explain it to others on the path taken by them. The obstacles which prevent us from attaining it are our enjoyment through our senses. Finally, our mind advises to tie our mind within ourselves and don't allow it to wander outside. Why are we unable to explain it? How this experience is more precious than anything in this world. Whatever you say, human mind has a tendency to compare it with something else. All our senses are tied up to our brain. The experience of wisdom is a realization. It is the state of truth. It is state of perfection. Only few had attained and realized it. Billions of people don't know it. Hence, it was not possible to show it to others and make them to feel it. Chapter number 14. Siddhar Thirumolar, Divine Instructions. Siddhar Thirumolar Instructions. Under the lineage of the Siddhar Agathiyar, the great saint and his friend and contemporary Siddhar Thirumolar, the emperor of 8-part Attanga Yoga, it is said that there are 90 million, which is 9 crores, Siddhar tradition Raja Yoga aspirants had realized God. Among them, the 18 Siddhas are very famous ones who had become immortals and guiding the chosen ones even today. Siddhar tradition Raja Yoga was practiced as a way of life in South India, notably in the land of Tamil, and gradually lost its prominence due to onslaught of alien cultures and religions. Again, it is gaining prominence in various forms of yoga practices. However, the original Raja Yoga founded by the ancient Siddhas is taught in person. No online courses. On full moon days as practiced in ancient times to the spiritual seekers in a Brahma Sutra Kuru Padasalai on the outskirts of Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. Siddhar Thirumolar distilled all his learning and experiences and composed his magnum opus Thirumandiram in Tamil language, comprising 3000 mandirams, which are stanzas divided into the following 9 tantrams, which are chapters. Number 1. philosophical views and divine experience, impermanency of the physical body, love, education, etc. Number 2. Shiva's glory, his divine acts, classification of souls, etc. Number 3. 8-part Ashtanga Yoga, Siddha tradition Shiva Raja Yoga practices. Number 4. It is about various mantrams and yantrams, which are chakrams, their forms, sizes, the alphabets to be written in them, the presiding deities, their strengths, the way of worshipping, and the fruits of worshipping. Number 5. It is the central theme of the Tirumandiram, which is the 4 stages of God realization: Sariyai, Kriyai, Yoga, Wisdom, and the descent of divine grace. Number 6. Shiva as Guru bestowing grace and the responsibility of the disciples. Number 7. Important 6 yoga chakrams of the body, features of a true Guru, worshipping the Guru, conquest and regulation of the semen, and comfortable instructions. Number 8. The various stages of experience of the soul and its nuances. Number 9. Nature of the realized soul, experiencing Shivam, state of mystical experience, and the nuances of Samadhi, etc. Tirumandiram has no equal in this world on all the aspects of human anatomy: childbirth, family life, the relationship between the disciple and the Guru, stages of God realization, achieving the 8 paranormal, which is Attama Siddhis, abilities, retaining the life to achieve immortality, step-by-step procedure in the form of 8-part yoga called Ashtanga Yoga to realize God and everlasting bliss and love. He had coined the immortal lines in Tamil: Ondre kulam oruvane devan, meaning there is only one community and only one God, and the first one to state that God is love, Anbe Shivam, and sharing his bliss throughout the world in Yan Petra Inbam, Peruga Ivvayagam. In the first Tantram, which is chapter, first section Siddhar Tirumular starts with the 30 stanzas on Upadesam. Upa means some other or next, and Desam means worldly life. Upadesam, the directions, preaching, and instructions for a heavenly life. Siddhar Tirumular provided an exclusive chapter on Upadesam. Chapter number 15. What is the difference between wisdom and knowledge? Knowledge is different and wisdom is different. Knowledge is to divide a whole object and name each part. Wisdom is to combine all these parts into one and realizing the perfection. Normally, knowledgeable people have not become sages. The first obstacle of knowledgeable people to attain wisdom is their own knowledge. Generally, the people with knowledge use a lamp to find the path. The person searching for wisdom becomes a lamp themselves on attaining wisdom. Similar to a person leaving ignorance is not wisdom. Wisdom is attained when the knowledge gained becomes null within him. Most of the aspirants don't reach this stage by leaving away the ignorance and knowledge. Either they live in the first stage called ignorance or live in the second stage called the development of knowledge and die. The worldly life is divided into these 2 stages with full of conflicts and completion forever. Knowledge is dividing and realizing, and separating the light and darkness are different from each other. Wisdom is to realize that each one is created from the other. The birth and death are the 2 sides of the same coin. Wisdom is to realize that there is no coin with one side. Knowledgeable persons from the time immemorial divided and understood the pleasure and sorrow separately. They had tried to get rid of the sorrows and attain the pleasures. Whatever the knowledgeable people considered as pleasures and spend time and make effort to attain and maintain those pleasures, but it turns into sufferings at a later date. Finally, they spend their entire life in finding an alternative to this. Sages had realized clearly that both the pleasures and sorrows are the 2 pains of the same balance and avoid them both. Knowledge attains fullness in wisdom and becomes perfection. Knowledge becomes an useful catalyst for the benefit of the society only when it attains perfection in wisdom. All the knowledge which has not reached perfection always immerses the people with ego and leads us towards destruction. The current science stops with the knowledge leading to the destruction of the world. Hence, people who had realized this point and who had started their spiritual search always think of escaping, and sometime they are afraid and hesitate to take a plunge to attain completion, like come up with a pearl by deep diving into the sea. People are interested to project themselves as a spiritualist, and with interest of spiritual journey, they search it in the outer world. They are always looking avenues for promoting themselves to gain name and fame. Most of the times, these type of people are mixing their real experience with falsehood to glorify themselves. This is the reason that May wisdom, that is spirituality, has become like the wisdom which is science and has become a commodity trading for money. Today, people around the world using the same ultimate object called God and running their businesses and livelihood in the shield of religions: Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jain, and Buddhism. If the ultimate object is only one, then there is no reason for so many religious fights and conflicts all over the world. Siddhar Sivavakiyar condemned this attitude and behavior of the people in the following compositions. Engal Devar, Ungal Devar என்று ரெண்டு தேவரோ? Are there two gods, my god, your god? இங்கும் அங்குமாய் இரண்டு தேவரே இருப்பாரோ? Are there two gods here and there? அங்குமிங்கும் ஆகி நின்ற ஆதிமூர்த்தி ஒன்றலோ? The original god is only one, who is here and there. வங்கவாரம் சொன்ன பேர்கள் வாய்ப்பொழுத்து மால்வாரே. Those who debated about it will die with a mouth full of worms. உருவமல்ல வெளியுமல்ல, ஒன்றை மேவி நின்றதல்ல. It is in a form but not the form. It is in space but not the space. It is with one of the five senses but not dependent on it. மருவுமல்ல காதமல்ல, மற்றதல்ல வற்றதல்ல. It is there but at a long distance. Exists in all five elements but it is not that. It is without affection but it is not without. பெரியதல்ல சிறியதல்ல, பேசுமாவிதானுமல்ல. It is very big but it is not that big. It is small but not that small. It is capable of speech but will not speak. அரியதாகி நின்ற நேர்மை யாவர் காண வல்லரே. Who has the ability to realize that which is rare and true? There are no many gods. There is only one ultimate object for the entire universe. People are unable to understand this. All over the world, people are wearing the mask of religion for their own selfish struggle. These people do not know what is Brahman. These people act as the direct agents of the Brahman. Their main objective is to glorify themselves and spread their own name and fame. By the influence of these type of spiritual businessmen, the real spiritual aspirants who are searching for attaining wisdom are confused about the method of attaining wisdom. These confused spiritual aspirants miscalculate that they can attain wisdom by the simple wisdom instructions from a guru. After getting these instructions, they think that the instruction itself is wisdom. Immediately, these people start their own outlets called either yoga centers or ashramams all over the world to spread their name and fame and initiate thousands of disciples thinking that they had become a great guru and get immersed into the muddy waters of a wisdom, which is ignorance, along with the disciples. Wisdom is the state of perfection of knowledge. Knowledge is useful only when it is taught to others about our readings, listening, learning. Knowledge is not the perfection of wisdom. There are people who worship God in this world from time immemorial. These people worshipping God till their last breath. At the same time, there were many people who were involved in various fun and amusements from time immemorial. Suddenly, by chance of their thoughts occurs in mind, they become devotees. Sometimes these people also attain the grace of God and become part of the history of humanity permanently. What is the reason which made them to attain the heights of spiritual journey? The reason is only one. It is a wonder of the mind. The person swimming on the top of the ocean reaches the beach safely through the surface waves, but without any treasures to show. However, only the person who dives deep into the ocean comes up with the conch shells, pearls, and corals. Why search for God and the thirst for wisdom is not found in many people? What is the reason? Today people have different avenues like searching for wisdom, searching for God, path of bhakti, path of yoga, path of science, path of siddhas, meditation and exercises. People are confused by the many different paths advertised through books, newspapers, radio and television, internet. Because of this information, many are confused by the analysis and unable to find which is a suitable one, which is the best path. Few of them, interested to try everything, want to follow which is the true path. Follow the interesting ones fit to their mind, the easiest path, the one leading to the God as decided by the mind. People select a path which itself becomes an obstacle for the aspirant. Why all the above mentioned become obstacles? Always they become obstacles because all these paths have the same end point. When and where will these end? At that point, the spiritual aspirant's individuality begins. People are thinking that wandering through all these paths and searching for God, whatever the practice followed, whatever the path selected, whoever may be the guru, aspirant must realize who I am. At the end, the aspirant must realize themselves. For this, they must ask the following questions very deeply. What is that I? How did this birth happen to me? Who and what is responsible for this birth? Is it because of the effect of the deeds of the previous birth? Has the effect of the deeds of my parents also combined with mine? Will bhakti, yoga and searching for God remove effects? What is the benefit attained by the instructions of the Guru? Can Guru give wisdom? What do we become after our death? Who am I if everything is inside me? What is that I if God is inside me? Am I a human being or a God? Why do I suffer pleasures and sorrows if God is inside me? When will all these end? Who will end it? Is it God or myself has to end it? Will I get rid of my pleasures and sorrows by practicing yoga or bhakti? What is the way to get rid of my sufferings? Is the path instructed by the Guru not the right one? If my sufferings continue, have I not understood the instructions properly? Why should I practice? What is the use of practice? Why there is no change within me, even after practice? Interest in God, yoga, bhakti and wisdom, all these are facts or is it an imagination? When will I know the path of wisdom? Is it in this birth or in the next one? All these questions arise in the minds of many people. They don't calculate where the defect is. The reason is that the mind will not accept and bring out the defects within us. Even if the mind suspects that the defect is in the practice, aspirant is not willing to get it clarified from the Guru. Many aspirants are living in the imagination that getting some instructions from the Guru will lead them to wisdom. Instruction from a Guru is like a good seed. The Guru had sown a seed within you. Only the aspirant must practice like the watering of the sown seeds, controlling the senses like fencing the field to protect the sown seeds, controlling the mind similar to the fertilizing the sampling to grow it into a tree. Instead of doing these, the aspirant blames others. Many people select this path by believing that the instructions alone can take them to the path of wisdom. Others believe that Guru himself will give you everything. Because of this kind of thinking, many people decide that this is the best path. It is not surprising that whoever needs spirituality and searching for God can come and get it like commodity trading. In the beginning, it might have been started without the business motive. When the instructions are given with the thought that from my instructions many sages will come out, these types of gurus realize that why am I giving instruction to the disciples who have not understood the instructions properly? The disciples are getting confused without knowing anything. Many gurus have come to this conclusion. They have started using their principles to popularize their name and fame, to increase their wealth, started using the spiritual path for their protection. This is the reason many of the spiritual centers had gone in the wrong direction and become spiritual corporate. In the same way, many of us who are searching for God visit these corporate spiritual centers. Their desire for the search is emphasized, knowing that most of them each for God, only this will accompany you at the end. They are preached that this is the final destination for the spiritual aspirant. On hearing this preaching, the mind of the aspirant who had merged with the spiritual corporate is calculating differently. I had got instructions from the Guru. Definitely I am going to see God. From now onwards, all my sufferings will go away. My family will live in happiness. All my thoughts will be fulfilled. I should not commit any mistake. My path is always the path of my Guru. I am going to practice continuously. I will become a sage. I will float in the air and walk in the water. I will show to this world who am I. I could perform any miracle. Definitely I will see God. The disciples surrender to the Guru with these kinds of thoughts in their mind. What happens in the end really? However, the wishes of the disciple and the Guru both are not fulfilled. Both the disciple and the Guru don't analyze the reason for this. Both of them blame each other and separated from each other. Only a few aspirants who realized few things started wandering with the understanding that where is the end? How to complete it? Who will come and complete it? In the above scenario, everything happened very well. The relationship between the Guru and the disciple was proper. However, the wisdom was missing in both of them, which is leading to confusion about wisdom. When the disciple realizes the reason for the confusion, they had come to the end of it and unable to do anything. Everything in this world is happening with a business motive. In spiritualism, it is stated that the human beings have three characteristics: tamasam, which is lazy mind; rajasam, hyperactive mind; sattvam, stable mind. Among the spiritual aspirants who succeeded in reaching the state of sattvam, only will qualify to see the end of it. Why it was not possible to achieve it through practice? Number 1. First, the thought of I will search and reach for God rises in the minds of people who are running away from the fear of sufferings in life. They were unable to understand that not only for human beings, for any living being in this world, the life is a mixture of both the pleasures and the sorrows. These people miscalculate that the spiritual path is the best one to get rid of their sufferings. Enter into the spiritual path, find out that in spiritual path there are difficult tests for the mind which is more difficult than the sufferings of the world, and run back to their former life, leaving the path of spirituality. Number 2. There are many spiritual aspirants who read about the miracles performed and the benefits attained by the people from sages, saints, and renunciates. Think of becoming like them to perform the miracles. These people do not think and realize about their state and qualifications. We don't realize that all those famous sages, saints, yogis, and renunciates had not reached that state in this birth alone. Nowadays, there are more people who do not realize that all these famous and highly elevated sages had been taking the efforts birth after birth and reached this state in the current birth. The main reason is that people lost faith and patience that God alone can decide to reveal the wisdom at the appropriate time and birth. Nowadays, people are not engaging their mind with faith in God. The main obstacle is the mindset of these spiritual aspirants that they must attain wisdom in this birth itself by their efforts and practice. Number 3. There is another type of people who want to be in the spiritual path for the appreciation of others, audience for preaching, show their bhakti by going to many temples. There are some others who want to be referred as the disciple of such a guru and interested in listening to others praise about the talents in singing. One can listen the whole day, addicted to the name and fame, not interested in diving deep into the deep ocean of spirituality to bring out the wisdom, is not important. They are only interested to gain name and fame and just skim the spiritual secrets. Number 4. There are some intellectuals capable of knowing the world affairs, capable of defeating anybody in debates, unable to read spiritual secrets from the books, realize that these secrets must be learned only from a guru. They approach a guru, become a disciple, clear all the doubts by asking questions, unable to analyze the answers from the guru, instead of following the instructions, started to build an image about themselves by the power of debating skills. Established as specialists in spiritual matters, earned a reputation that none can defeat them in debates on spiritual matters, living in a state of stupor by their name and fame. Number 5. There are some other type of people, have an ego that nothing is impossible for them, can achieve anything, come to the spiritual path with a valorous attitude for achievement. On hearing the instructions from their guru to control their mind first and before that bring all their senses under control, they will promise the guru that they will comply with all these to bring the senses under control. Avoid eating meat, avoid alcohol, avoid frequent copulation with the spouse, don't waste semen, slowly reduce the affection on kith and kin and attachment to the properties. You must cultivate that these are all the images of illusion and not real. You will succeed only if you follow these guidelines. They will agree to all these guidelines for receiving the instructions from the guru and start their practice sincerely. After a few months, get confused about not having any vision of God. They will go back to the guru and inform him, even though I am following all your guidelines, still unable to get the vision of God. Guru informs that your thought about following all the instructions and guidelines itself has become an obstacle. Your mind is not under control. The very thought that I am doing yoga itself is an obstacle. Your thought of the vision of God is also an obstacle. Mind is the reason for all these obstacles. Must control the mind and remain without any disturbance. Many people had left spiritual path at this point due to the difficulty and confusion to analyze about the mind and the obstacles. These people have not understood that the basis of the spiritual path is controlling the mind. Only through the subdued mind, wisdom is possible. Unable to understand this, mind must be returned inwards, remain in solitude, remain without any thoughts. People do not know these fundamentals of the spiritual path. Nowadays, the spirituality has become a business because of the selfishness of these spiritual wanderers. Chapter number 16. What is the difference between ignorance and wisdom? As long as there is a mind within us, the ego called I will be there. That feeling of I will imagine everything to its wish, whatever is seen by that in this world. It will conflict with the imagination of the real mind. To resolve this type of conflicts, the mind I will discard only the truth and will never compromise with its imagination. There are many examples for this in our daily life. We are living within a circle of our parents, siblings, spouse, children, and relatives. Whatever we have imagined about everyone, we will always hold it as the right one, and we will never change from this. Our mind will always try to hide the mistakes of our kith and kin. That person is not like that. That person is a good person. This person is spoiled by the relationship of someone else. Our mind will always try to shift the blame onto someone else. Our inner mind will definitely know the truth. However, the outward-looking mind looks for ways to hide the truth. A person is boarding the aeroplane to go to Mumbai. After boarding the aeroplane, the doors of the plane are closed. The person is locked to the seat by the seat belt. After a few hours of flying, the plane lands in Mumbai in airport. The doors of the plane is opened and the person is coming out. The person is in Mumbai now. At the same time, a bird from Chennai starts to fly high in the sky. It also reaches Mumbai after flying for few days. Look at the differences in traveling between these two. Can the person say that I had reached Mumbai by flying like the bird? It is true that the plane was flying in the sky. It is true that the person also reached Mumbai. However, The person didn't have the true flying experience. The person had entered into a safety cage. The entry point into the cage is Chennai, and the exit point is Mumbai. Other than this, the person does not have a flying experience. We are all similar to the person traveled in the plane. Sages are similar to the birds. We're all taken according to a planned path, without knowing where we are, without knowing what is happening. However, the sages lead their life with full realization like the flying bird. The person got into the plane in Chennai, getting out of the plane in Mumbai. Where were we before we took birth? How did we get this body? Who's responsible for getting this body? How did our life enter into this body? Which object did we get into? How did we travel with this body and landed on Earth? We do not know the answers to these questions. When we wake up, we realize that we are on this earth. Similarly, in the process of death, which is dead? Where do we go after death? How did we take birth again? We become unconscious just before death. After that, we do not know the path of death. When will this travel end? Where did it arrive? We do not know any of these. Ages are always in full consciousness during travel of the life in this world. Travel of their mind, travel of their soul. The bird flies on its own without any restrictions, stays in any place of its choice, knows the starting place, knows the route, knows the destination place, determines its own path. Similar to this, sages are fully aware of their position. They have a capacity to determine that. They do not have individual likes and dislikes. Because of this, they don't like to determine anything. However, this power is inside a sage by nature. Life in this world is for understanding and realization. Only by personal experience one can clearly realize it. It is better than asking somebody else, reading the books, looking at the life of many people. Hence, love your life with affection.